Good evening. It's about 5:30 p.m. Sunday, February 5th, and I am on I-64. Well, I'm actually at the truck stop on I-64, right in between Lexington and Louisville, Kentucky. I stopped here last night for my 34-hour reset, and I will be continuing on to Virginia tomorrow with my load. The last video I made was my last run with the company I was with before. I was notified that week that I was going to be laid off due to financial reasons. It was a small outfit that I was working for. In fact, it was literally the owner, another owner-operator leased onto him, and then me as the only full-time employee. Basically, they needed somebody to run a truck for them due to a loss in the family, an unexpected passing of the original owner, and the dad was taking over the company, and I went and ran his truck for him as a favor, but unfortunately he was unable to keep things afloat financially, and that's the way it is in trucking. I had kicked around the idea of getting out of over the road and maybe try to find something local, Monday through Friday, typically first shift hours, and first shift meaning show up to work anytime between anytime after 5 a.m. Or 5 a.m. and after, and leaving at 5 p.m. I actually had one interview out of the places that I applied, and what I found was, the local pay just really wasn't all that great. I had a specific amount of how much I wanted to earn per week, and I don't think that it is unreasonable for even a local truck driver to make what I wanted, but unfortunately, a lot of places just aren't going to pay that much, and I don't care how I get there. I mean, I can get there with overtime and all that. I mean, the one place I did interview at was Waste Management, and I was going to definitely make at least what I wanted, but that was, with overtime. And reporting to work, I'd been reporting at 5 a.m. and leaving at 3 p.m. every day, and we would work about one Saturday a month, and then at the occasional Sunday. The position they were hiring for, that I interviewed for, was basically a relief driver plus kind of a does anything type job. They said they wanted a person to run roll-off containers, front loader and residential, and deliver containers and pick up the containers, and also do some other kind of odd jobs around the yard around the shop. One of those, he said, would be welding, and I had welded many years ago in the military. That was one of my jobs in the military, and I told him that it had been a while since I welded, and my first few beads probably wouldn't look all that great, and I'd be more of a grinder than a welder. He kind of chuckled and said they were trash cans and they don't need to be pretty. The interview went pretty well, I thought. We actually ended up talking for probably about an hour and a half, and I think it was looking pretty good until we got to the point where I told him I was going to need just some random days off to take care of going to court from my previous career as a cop. For those of you that don't know, I spent 25 years as a cop and retired as a detective, and I investigated a bunch of stuff, and I still have some stuff out there that needs to go to trial. I got stuff that very well could end up in court again, In fact, one of the last times I ended up in court, it was a case that I helped on, and it was it was an appeal. The guy had been in prison already for 10 years for a murder, and he got an appeal. He got a new trial, and it wasn't anything that the cops or the courts did. It was actually his attorney's mess up. And really, to be honest with you, I don't even think it was a mess up. You know, I won't go into a whole lot of detail, but basically he reported, or he told the courts that he had reported something to his defense attorney, and his defense attorney failed to investigate it. The problem is there wasn't anything to investigate. You know, basically he said something happened to him a couple of weeks before the murder, and there was absolutely no witnesses. He had told nobody else. He didn't know who done it to him. Basically, there was literally nothing other than him telling his attorney, "Hey, I was robbed 2 weeks before I killed this guy," and there's nothing else. You know, there was nothing else there. And because of that, because his attorney failed to investigate it, he got a new trial. And I guess I did kind of go into a little bit of detail about it. But it's kind of funny, when he got the new trial, they didn't even raise that defense because there were some issues that they would actually be able to, the prosecution, if the defense were to raise the issue of the reported robbery, then that would actually open the door for prosecution to talk about this other past bad act that nobody, that didn't get brought up in the first trial. And so the defense went with a self-defense claim. They kind of won, but they kind of didn't. And it really kind of sucks for the victim and their family, or in his family, because, you know, the guy actually ended up being convicted of something lesser than the original conviction. Basically, the jury, you know, instead of finding him guilty of, I think it was second-degree intentional, I think they found him guilty of voluntary manslaughter, and he got time served and was able to be released. And I thought that was actually kind of shitty that here he gets a new trial based off of the information that, you know, that the appeals court was given, and that he does not, his attorney does not have to talk about that in court. So it kind of stinks. But, you know, that's the justice system, and sometimes there's some things that go on that even cops don't agree with. You know, and it is what it is. But anyway, so I have some cases out there, and I've done other homicide cases and murder cases that people are serving time for, other big cases. I mean, I've got people that'll spend the rest of their lives in prison on cases that, you know, if they were ever granted an appeal, you know, I'd have to deal with that. And that could be 10 years from now, 15 years from now, you know, and I also have some cold cases, some homicides that weren't chargeable. It's kind of one of those things, yeah, we know who done it, we just can't prove it. Kind of like in the movie Training Day, when Denzel Washington says, "It's not what you know, it's what you can prove." And to be honest with you, there's a whole lot of truth to that. I did a lot of stuff that, you know, I investigated a lot of cases that, you know, we know what happened, we know who done it, we just don't have the evidence or the witnesses, you know, and eventually, hopefully, some of these cases will come to fruition, and some witnesses or evidence will resurface. I actually have one case out there. It's a homicide case, a quadruple homicide, and we are just waiting on some, I mean, there's just some evidence that just needs to surface, I guess, so to speak. I really don't want to go into detail on that one, just because, you know, yeah, it's still an open case technically, just in a cold status, and that's the case where, you know, I believe I know who done it and why. disproving it. I'm waiting for basically some evidence to surface, and unfortunately we're just kind of stuck, and with the information that we have, the DA's office just can't charge it. And it's not one of these that they won't, it's just they can't. But in any case, like I said, I could be going to court on that 20 years from now. Hell, I investigated a cold case that was a homicide from 1981 or 83. I think it was 83. And I mean, everybody is old in that, and I talked to the original detective and all that, and we actually got really good information on the case, but the DA's office says that they can't prosecute it with the evidence that we have. I think that they can, and I think that they should, but they're the ones that's got to basically answer to what they do, just like I'm the one who answered to what I did. And plus too, the concern with charging people too early or too soon or without enough evidence. If they're found not guilty, that's it. Case is done. They could confess to it later. Hell, O.J. Simpson could confess, could give 100% confession to, his case, and there's nothing anybody can do about it, because of double jeopardy. But in any case, so those are the things I'd be dealing with, and Waste Management told me that they really couldn't do that, and like that, and sometimes there'd be like no time. There would be not much of a heads up on when I would need court. They might give me a subpoena a week in advance, or they might give me a subpoena 2 months in advance, and that subpoena might tell me to show up on a Thursday at 1 p.m. And I get there, and this actually happens quite a bit. I get there Thursday at 1 p.m. and they don't get to me for the whole day, and the court adjourns for the day, and then I'm ordered back at Monday, or the next morning at 8 a.m. And that's no warning at all. And they said that they're so customer service based, and the job that I was applying for would be so reliant on me showing up every day that they just could not do that. But it couldn't accommodate me that way, and I guess. But it was kind of funny though. He did tell me that he would strongly recommend me to apply as a manager in the terminal that was about an hour and 15-minute drive from where we were. He was the manager there, and basically he told me to apply for his job in the next, at that terminal, because then there would be a little bit more leeway of me not showing up, because instead of servicing customers directly, I would be managing people who were servicing customers, and the managers actually get paid really well, but didn't really want to do a 10-hour day plus 2.5 hours worth of driving each day. That would honestly, I just think that'd just be too much, because I would have to be there at 5 a.m., which means I would have to leave at probably 3:30 every morning, because it was every bit of 115. It was every bit of an hour and 15 minutes under perfect conditions. So I'd have to leave about 3:30 every morning, because I am one of these people, I don't like to walk in at the last minute, and then I wouldn't be leaving until 3 p.m. or maybe even sometimes later that evening, and then another hour and 15-minute drive back home. So I decided not to do that. He actually even told me that I could use him as a reference, which I found kind of not funny, but really kind of flattering, I guess, because like literally I just met for the first time. He interviewed me for a position, and we actually, and like I said, we ended up talking for about an hour and a half, and a lot of that was legit interviewing, and he was pretty impressed with me, but couldn't hire me due to needing the random days off for court. And I understand. I get it. Not a big deal. And also, why I wanted something local and or maybe even not even trucking was, by now I definitely wanted my own truck, possibly my own authority with my own company and all that. Because I've been doing this now for, a year and a half or so. And to be honest with you, I'm one of these people, I just jump in both feet. Like, this is what I want to do. I'm going to do my research on it, and I'm going to figure it out, and then there's going to be mistakes made. Luckily, I actually have, people who I know who own their own companies, and I have access to, family and friends who own their own companies, and, they could definitely get me started. Even when I drove for the family friend a little bit ago that had to lay me off a couple weeks ago, he had talked about, helping me buy my truck when it's time to buy. And it just so happens the truck that I was in, I'll be honest with you, I probably would have bought it, but it just had so many mechanical problems. And the heck of it is, he had the same make and model truck, the same year and everything, didn't have near the problems that this one had. This one was in the shop about once a month. And it was usually emissions. And in that year and a half, I learned, a lot of different stuff. Well, some different things, or changed my mind on how I wanted to get into trucking anyway. Because before, when I first started out, I was told by my cousin that if you can't afford new, you can't afford used. Basically meaning, you go out and you buy a truck that's used, and you're kind of crossing your fingers that there's nothing major wrong with it. He told me a story that when he first started out, he bought a used truck and found out, I think within a month or two, why, the guy had traded it in. And he had to replace an entire engine. And, and that's a pretty expensive bill. Now, you do that now in a truck, I mean, you're talking, you could get up in the, $50, $60, $70, $80,000 range, depending on what you got. And whether you're doing a rebuild or buying a rebuild or getting a brand new engine, and I mean, that kind of crap can almost break you. But in the past year and a half, I've learned that I really probably don't want a newer truck because they have all this emissions crap. I really would like a pre-emissions Kenworth or a Peterbilt, with either a Detroit or a Cat or a Cummins, probably in that order, maybe. Yeah, probably about in that order. And I'd want it without all the emissions, because those emissions are just something else. A friend of mine once told me, a friend of mine who's a mechanic, told me about all the DEF stuff, and he was just talking about light diesel pickup trucks and or light diesel trucks like pickup trucks. And he said, imagine running a marathon breathing through a straw. He says that's what the EPA has done to diesel engines. Basically, they just can't breathe right. But the truck kept breaking down, and I'm sure that my wife probably would have told me to not come home if I would have bought it. But had it not been breaking down, I probably would have actually bought the truck. And then I'd be dealing with the low freight and the low rates and all that, just like what everybody else is, or what a lot of people are dealing with now. And also high fuel, high maintenance costs. And you put all that together, and I had it in my mind, how much money I wanted to make, and I had a range of how much money I wanted to make per week after expenses, so that way I could live well, but also be able to put back a whole bunch of money, because you really need to have basically a slush fund for your breakdowns and the time that you're not able to run, or the time that you just don't run because of vacation or other time off. Because you got to realize, if you got a truck, if you got $100,000 note on a truck, and you don't run that week, you still got to pay that bill that month. And I mean, you're talking, $100,000, I mean, that might run you, $500 a week or more. The truck that I was running, if I would have bought it, I would have been running around $700 a week, and you got to pay that regardless of whether you're running or not, and so it is what it is. But now I'm back in the driver's seat with a big company running loads for a dedicated customer. I thought, just from reading the ad, that this was going to be a dedicated route, which I was okay with. But to be honest with you, if I'm going to be out for a week or two at a time, I'd rather be running all over the country instead of a dedicated route. And that's kind of what we're doing. We get a load from this dedicated customer, haul it to our destination, and then we get a back haul back towards the customer, and then deadhead the rest of the way back to the customer to pick up another trailer, and we just kind of keep doing that. And at this point, I'll probably be staying out, I don't know, I told my wife, probably a couple weeks at a time, and it'll probably be realistically 12 to 14 days out, and then I'll probably take 3 days off at home. But the pay was good. The pay is it's pretty damn good, and that's part of the reason why I went to it. And plus, I'm hauling dragging a Conestoga trailer, so it's like what I was doing before, except the customer preloads the trailer, and I don't have to tarp the load because the tarp is built onto the trailer, and I just basically pull it over the load. The one thing I didn't think about, though, was during the wintertime, apparently these Conestogas are kind of a beast to operate. Sometimes you get some snow and ice packed up in the tracks, and they don't want to slide very easily. So I'm probably going to be looking up tricks that I can do to help that. I know I have a crowbar, at least that's what they told me to use, was a crowbar to kind of clear it out. I might do that, or I might try and concoct some kind of a spray that I can carry on. I'm thinking maybe if I can get a some kind of like one of the big pump bottles, and have some kind of an alcohol type concoction in there that I can spray up in the track to melt the ice. I'll be looking into that. And I don't know if I can actually do that. I don't know if it's good to do that. I don't know if it's possible. Maybe it'll slush up and freeze too. I don't know. It's just something I'm going to look into, because I'm all about trying to figure out easier and better ways to do the work. I'm not lazy. I just I look for efficiency, basically, because if I can get the same results by doing something different that's a little bit easier, then why not? I mean, that's what life is all about, right? But anyway, so that's where I'm at. I'm gonna be probably making some more videos of telling my cop stories that I was before. For those of you who don't know, I did 25 years as a cop. I retired because the pension was just that good. It was just my optimum time to go. If any of y'all out there want to be cops, go for it, man. You'll hear a lot of cops kind of bagging on it now these days, because of all the stuff that's going on. But bottom line is, we still have a vast majority of the population supporting us. It's just there are people out there that have really big soapboxes, and they have, they're able to scream at the top of their lungs about, the things that cops do wrong. And in some of my videos, in one of my past videos, I talked about what it's like to be a cop, and basically what it takes. And just to kind of sum it up, imagine dealing with somebody who doesn't want to go to jail, and while you're dealing with that person, a bystander or a friend that they are with is yelling at you, and they know that you can't do what you're doing because their cousin is a first year law student, and they told them about this, and they saw it on CSI, and they saw this on Law and Order, and they know that we can't do what we're doing, and blah blah blah. And trust me, I've been in that situation. You know, I had a real quick story before I end. I had a guy tell me, I was dealing with him, and I forget what I was doing. But basically, you know, he tells me, he says, you know, I'm a first year law student, and I know that you can't do this. And I explained to him that, well, yes, what I'm doing is perfectly fine. You know, I'm not dumb. And then I asked him, I said, well, what kind of law are you going to practice? And he tells me, he says, I'm going to practice kind of law where I'm going to represent rich people to sue people like you for malpractice. And I informed him, I said, well, then that's kind of shows you what kind of lawyer you might end up being, because cops don't practice. Practice is for lawyers and doctors and people like that. Cops are just enforcement. We don't practice anything, so there is no malpractice. But anyway, so that's where I'm at, back with a big company, and making some pretty good money. Or at least I will be. I'm actually on my first run, haven't been paid yet. So, but anyway, if you liked the video, hit the like. You know, come back and watch more, or look up some of my past videos. Because like I said, I think I have some pretty interesting stories to tell. I know I've talked to other people in the past, just tell them about some of the things that I've investigated and some of the things I've done. And you know, I actually had somebody ask me one time, it's like, you really did all that? And I said, oh, I did a lot more than that. There are some cases that, to be honest with you, I don't even know if I can talk about them on YouTube because they're so bad. And I've investigated everything from a $10 theft to a quadruple murder, and every single thing in between that you can ever even think of, I've investigated. All right, you guys have a good day.